Welcome to episode 60 of the Grip Strip podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm here with my co-host Josh Fine. What's good, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Phil. We had an interesting weekend of racing at Spain and at Darlington for NASCAR, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. And of course, it is the month of May, so we got to start preparing for that as well. But great to be back for another week talking about racing with you.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that this time last year we were in the infancy of this show, and the two of us, I think, had only done the one episode of Fill in the Blank, and now we've done 60 episodes. So it's pretty cool to have this deal going and have you along and taking what started as Facebook friends on some random NASCAR pages to actually doing a show about all kinds of racing. So we're going to keep this thing going. Tonight's show is going to go over the fact that Lewis Hamilton might have taken Max Verstappen's soul and other events that took place at Catalunya in the Spanish Grand Prix. 98th win for Sir Lewis Hamilton and his 100th pole as they take a week off before they go to Monaco. Martin Truex Jr. Doing a version of The Rock with his size 12 boot up everybody's behind and winning both stages and winning the race. There really wasn't anybody that could touch him there. It makes sense that a non-throwback car basically won the race because it's typical Gibbs and Martin Truex. He doesn't know how to run a throwback. So that's beside the point. But yeah, he dominated. Junior Motorsports had a great day on Saturday with Justin Allgaier getting the win. 3 of the 4 cars that'll be in the Dash for Cash are Junior Motorsports cars for this weekend's race, including Noah Gragson, who got disqualified, had won the 100K, got disqualified, and then got it reinstated just now as we record just a little bit ago. So he'll be in the Dash for Cash. No AJ Allmendinger there, and they'll try to sweep all 4, get $400,000 there. If they can somehow or another win at Dover, which it's Noah Gragson, so I don't think he will. I figure it'll be Justin Allgaier or Josh Berry who finished second. And then Sheldon Creed in the cluster that was the Truck Series race on Friday night goes and gets his first win of the season in a Leffler, Jim Smith, ASC number 2 truck throwback. So, that was cool for Sheldon Creed, defending series champion, to finally beat the Toyota Stranglehold. And we'll talk about all those events. We'll talk about the fact Dover's this weekend, the one weekend for Dover this year. And we'll be Cup and Xfinity. And we'll get into all of that, along with MotoGP, in the roundup, MotoGP, Supercars, Formula E, Formula 3, and IMSA returning after, I don't know, since Sebring, I think it was. Then we'll get into a little bit of the NFL schedule, since they are announcing it basically right now, or have, for both Josh's Jaguars and my San Francisco 49ers. I know we're going to be playing Detroit on the road. We'll be playing 2 road games to start the year. We'll be in Detroit and Philly to start the year before we come back, supposedly to play Aaron and Green Bay Packers, if Aaron is still a Green Bay Packer. Kind of hoping he isn't, because then the Niners could probably be 3-0. But we'll talk about Josh's at least a 1-0 start, because he'll be playing Houston, and Trevor Lawrence's debut there, and then what else is coming. And they'll have the London game, of course, because, of course, Shad Khan and the Jaguars. But we'll get into all that. We'll also make picks for the Indy Grand Prix, which is the precursor to, of course, the Indianapolis 500. They announced they've provided the entry list for the Indy 500. No Cody Ware. How unfortunate. But, can't have everybody in this race. We have had furniture movers before, but it isn't the IRL anymore. Get into Cup at Dover, Xfinity at Dover. Josh's sim, he did some 1987 racing a few days ago, caught a little bit of that. It's pretty scary at Michigan. Basically, trying to drive that thing as loose as it is. So credit to Josh on that and give us some details. And then we'll close. Hopefully we'll go shill for some sponsors. We have Circle B Diecast with our code, and maybe we'll see if Manscaped will sponsor us, since they sponsor all kinds of English podcasts. And they were Brandon Marshall was trying to get Dale Jr. to use a Manscaped, which was hilarious. That was a funny end to that show. That was a great podcast. The I Am Athlete NASCAR version with Dale Jr. That was really cool and enlightening. And the fact that Junior does not manscape, which you probably could figure, and because he's married and he's over 40 and doesn't want to try anymore, and he's already had his 2 kids, so I don't think he's cares. All right, so going from Manscaped and messing with your downstairs area to somebody who's definitely does Manscape, I would figure. It would explain how he can tattoo basically his entire body and still go and drive faster than anybody else in Formula One. One of the fastest drivers ever in Formula One history, Sir Lewis Hamilton, going and binning the start on Sunday in the Spanish Grand Prix, but then putting in a recovery drive of sorts. First segment, basically catching Max Verstappen, doing the undercut, then doing the overcut after Valtteri Bottas got held up behind Lewis on the initial few corners, lost a spot to Charles Leclerc. I mean, he was basically done. His day was over at that point. Had to wait most of the Grand Prix to get past Charles Leclerc. Did the undercut, led Max Verstappen in, which started the whole situation where Max Verstappen ended up doing a 1-stop strategy versus a Lewis and Mercedes 2-stop, and Lewis Hamilton put in 20 plus qualifying laps and basically ate Max Verstappen's lunch and bend him over Old Country way, and I think took his soul on Sunday, because if you look at how Lewis, his disposition at the end of that race versus the disposition of Max Verstappen, you could tell that it did not work out very well for good old Max and Red Bull. And it's similar, and many people mention Hungary 2019 with the similar result in how everything went down there. But even then, I mean, it was Lewis went and took that race away from Max Verstappen when basically Red Bull had it in the bag after the start, because it's Spain. You can barely pass there. The results were Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Valtteri Bottas, first, second, and third. So in theory, they held their spots. The top 4 in theory held their spots because Charles Leclerc finished 4th. Sergio Perez started 8th, finished 5th. Ricardo 7th, and Ricardo and Sainz swap positions from their start, and those were the 7 cars on the lead lap. Lando Norris, Esteban Ocon, and Pierre Gasly were your points finishers. The only retirement was Yuki Tsunoda with an electronics issue, only 6 laps into the Grand Prix, which caused a full safety car period. Josh, the battle between Lewis and Max is going to go on this whole year, but I think what took place on Sunday was possibly the first nail in the coffin for Red Bull if they're really going to try to beat Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes.
Right. I mean, for Max Verstappen, I mean, it has to be crushing for him just to lead all that laps. I mean, he led the most laps in the race. I mean, obviously he don't get any consolation for that, but still to lead for that amount of the race and not win has to be crushing. And for Lewis, like, he didn't even have to lead the entire race and he still won. So that tells you just how good of a driver he is and just how good of a car the Mercedes team is able to give him to win these races. And for Verstappen, I mean, they just don't have the pace compared to Lewis Hamilton. And like you said, I mean, they were kind of forced into doing the one-stop strategy for the race, whereas Mercedes, they were able to go on a two-stop strategy, and that gave Lewis Hamilton the ability to drive back through the field and pass Max Verstappen in the last 5 laps of the race. And Max just couldn't hold him off at the end. I mean, he had the DRS for Hamilton going into turn 1, and he was just able to pass Verstappen there and then take the win. So it was definitely an interesting strategy for Red Bull to take. I mean, they kind of had to, and just try to get a big lead at the end, and that one that they would hope to be too big for Lewis Hamilton to take. But then, of course, the Mercedes just has a lot of pace behind it, and it's just able to go out and pass people and make up time, and they're able to do that. And for them, I mean, obviously they like it, and it's a lot more enjoyable for them to just be able to go out and do that. So for this battle, I mean, this is, like you said, probably the first nail in the coffin, and I think Red Bull's going to have to do a little bit of evaluation to see what they need to do to, I guess, re-equalize the advantage that they thought they had when the season started in Bahrain. Because when you think about it, like, we all thought that maybe they'll be able to challenge Mercedes this year, and for the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, it looked like that. But this one here, it was clearly, even though they led a lot of the laps, it was clearly a Mercedes race in the very end. So now that they've only won one race, now they got to go back and look at what they need to do to win the Monaco GP in 2 weeks. So if they're able to do that, obviously it would kind of equalize the fight a little bit. But for Hamilton, he's just got to go out and keep on winning. And he had his 100th pole this weekend, and then also his 98th win. So now he's just 2 wins away from hitting the century mark in Formula One wins, and continue to add to his record and his legacy, I guess, as a Formula One driver. But for the points battle, I mean, even though Max Verstappen didn't win the race, I mean, he still got the fastest lap award, which is at least a good consolation prize for him. But the championship battle is beginning to distance between him and Lewis there. So he's got a 14-point difference to Lewis. And even though it's still early, so there's still time to make it up. But obviously, as the season wears on and he continues to finish second to Lewis, it's going to be a lot tougher battle to be for the championship for them to win it.
Yeah, and for Max, when you get the start, Lewis didn't get the best start, but Max got him there. You have to call it like it is, and they had a good enough car on pace during the first segment, but they also were giving up time by the end of the stint on those used softs. So in a sense, they had an opportunity to kind of stem it. They'll use the excuse that, the second car wasn't there, and that's why Valtteri Bottas was used as kind of like the guinea pig. But you could also go and not answer what Valtteri Bottas is doing and make Mercedes make the first move in regards to Lewis, not Valtteri Bottas. And maybe that changes the tide, and that stems the tide a little bit. I don't know. I think Monaco will suit the Red Bull better than the Mercedes. Personally, I think they'll be able to get and the reality is this: you can qualify on pole at Monaco, you're basically going to win unless you completely F it up like Mercedes did for Lewis a few years ago. It's something that if they can put qualifying together, which Max has been doing good this year so far. I mean, granted, Lewis has, he has the 2 poles, and Max has one and Valtteri has one. So the fact is, it's going to be one of those 3 likely to go and get the pole, but I think it's going to be more than likely either Lewis or Max, and I feel like Max is going to be the guy. I think Max is angry now and pissed about the fact that they gave away that race, and he probably didn't perform his best. And fundamentally, he needs to answer. And Lewis, for as great as he is, I was saying it is one of his best tracks where he's won all these races in a row. So, I mean, that I guess I was incorrect on that one. I just don't like Catalunya. It's just a crappy circuit. But he made it look interesting the way he was putting in laps there on Sunday. But Monaco is a totally different beast and very difficult. It's basically not a racing circuit. I don't think it even was a racing circuit when it first started. It's definitely not grade one Formula One circuit under any circumstances. Because under that logic, you could run Road America, Watkins Glen, any number of circuits here. You could run what you call. You can run the Mossport. You can run Sebring. You can run any number of
Laguna
great circuits. Laguna. They could run any number of circuits around here in America that are way more safer, and you could actually pass than Monaco, but it's because it's a principality and it's classic. So we'll talk about that next week in more detail. But in terms of the midfield battle itself, you look at Ferrari, they have taken a step forward, getting a double points finish again with Leclerc and Sainz with 4th and 7th. You have the McLaren duo 6th and 8th, with Ricciardo finally getting above Lando Norris. And then after that, you have one Alpine with Ocon, and then the AlphaTauri with Gasly. The two Astons in 11th and 13th. And so, I mean, you can kind of see the tiers falling out accordingly now. I think Ferrari and McLaren are in their own little group now, the second level, or they're level behind Mercedes and Red Bull. And then after that, you have the AlphaTauris and Alpine, and I guess for you could say Aston Martin, but they haven't had pace all year. The car has just not been that good. They're kind of in the limbo phase. And then Alfa Romeo's kind of in a limbo. So I feel like there's multiple tiers now in this deal in regards to where everybody is at. But what did you see? Was there anybody that stood out to you in regards to the midfield? I mean, I guess Leclerc is the easy answer. But I would say Daniel Ricciardo finally starting to get his hands around this McLaren with the Mercedes engine power unit is a good sign, considering how good of a driver he is. And once he kind of figures it out, he's able to build his part of the team around him and build that team morale up. McLaren's running really good in both IndyCar and now in Formula One, but they want to take that step forward and step back to where they've been many years before. But who stood out to you in regards to the midfield battle on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like I was gonna say Leclerc, just because we've been talking about how bad Ferrari is over the past year, but so far this season, I mean, he scored points in every race that we've had so far to start the 2021 season, and so far, I mean, Leclerc has looked like he's been the best of the rest. To me, I mean, we've talked about Lando Norris as well, but he didn't really have. I mean, relative to Leclerc, he didn't really have that great of a race, and Leclerc was obviously the best of the midfield guys, and I almost want to give the nod to Ferrari as a whole. It seems like maybe they may at the end of the year they may be a little bit more consistent, I guess, than McLaren, because it seems like McLaren seems to have better results at some other tracks where they finish top three or one of their cars can get on the podium, like we saw at the beginning of the year with Lando Norris. But then with Ferrari, like as a team, as a constructor, I feel like maybe they'll be able to get more consistent results throughout the year with their two drivers, with Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. So for me, I think Ferrari seems to be improving. But I still do believe, like you said, with Daniel Ricciardo, I mean, he finished ahead of Lando there in this Spanish Grand Prix. So the first time this season that he finished above his teammates, but still they have a lot of work to do to be better. I mean, like you said, as we go throughout the year, I mean, he's going to get more comfortable with this car, and we're going to start to maybe see the Daniel Ricciardo that we saw when he was at Red Bull, when he was the top guy there. So would look forward to see if they're able to kind of produce those type of results, and maybe McLaren gets a upset win in the middle of this Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton battle that we're seeing this season. Maybe they figure out how to win at one of these races. We'll see. But I think, another team we have to talk about is Alpine. I mean, Esteban Ocon managed to get in points this week with a ninth place finish. And Fernando Alonso ended up finishing a lap down in 17th in his home Grand Prix. But I still think for them, they might end up being, I guess, the team below, one tier below McLaren and Ferrari to go end of the year, I guess. But I think those guys, and then also, Aston Martin's below them. I think what you said, and then Alfa Romeo, and then I guess we don't really have to talk about the rest of the field. It's all irrelevant. But
Yeah,
I think for this, like, it seems like at this point this season, I may point to Ferrari, I guess, as below the team that's below Mercedes and Red Bull.
yeah, they've made the new power unit after last year's having to basically take it on the chin with all the cheating they did before that. This new power unit has been able to perform, and the main team is doing better in general. Good combination at the Scuderia with Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, and I think those dividends will pay off more next year. And you can look at it in just the constructors' standings right now. 29-point lead for Mercedes over Red Bull, and then after that, there's a huge gap. 35 and 47 points from Red Bull to McLaren, and then McLaren and Ferrari are only separated by 5 points. So that's going to be an interesting battle, and they're in their own little fight. Alpine, AlphaTauri, Aston Martin are all separated by 10 points. So they're probably in their own world right there. I think Aston Martin basically is in no man's land, and AlphaTauri, if they would, with Yuki Tsunoda could finish races, they would maximize some of those tracks where they're a little better. They might be giving Alpine a little bit of a fight. Alpine's car is very hit or miss as well. Alonso being completely out to lunch at home is not a great sign. But we'll see. And then the other three teams have not scored. And specifically, for Alfa Romeo, they've had their moments, but they don't have a great car. Williams, of course, they're not really interested in this year. Hopefully George Russell can pull a point, but it's going to be very difficult. Even Latifi is performing better in his third year on the grid. So Darlington has put in a little bit of money, but they're not really focused. The one team that we will focus on is the last team, Putin Haas and Egghead, because he was affecting the race again. He got a penalty point and a ceremonial penalty for pit or qualifying position because he qualified dead last anyway after holding up Lando Norris in qualifying in Q1. Then during the race, he held up, I think it was Max, or no, he held up Lewis actually. Yeah, he held up Lewis during that first segment, and Toto Wolff actually called Michael Massey on the radio to tell him that Egghead was in the way and affecting their strategy. I think Egghead, there's one thing you can say about him. It's that he has figured out a way to make himself a part of every race. Now, the negative is he's figured out a way to make himself a part of every race. When you are as bad as he is and you are as big of a tool as Egghead is, and that car is an absolute piece of trash. Literally a rolling piece of garbage. There are garbage cans, there are lawnmowers, there are freaking, coolers. There's things that are motorized that are probably much better than that Haas. Albeit, Mick Schumacher's able to make passes and actually look like a proper Formula One driver, but that's beside the point. His daddy is a legend and he's a Formula 2 champion, while his teammate's dad is going to buy the team, and his uncle is Laddie. So, I mean, when you saw that he went and affected the race again, and all the, of course, memes and all the hashtags that exist about him, and the notion of how people talk about him, and even the announcers, you could tell when they talk about him, you're just like, oh boy, this guy really sucks. I mean, it's something to see. And I think, and I said this on Grid Talk, and we were talking about it on Grid Talk because they always throw to me when it comes to Egghead. And I think because they just know I'm going to say something crazy. But the notion is he's going to get his ass kicked. And I think he's going to get his ass kicked next week at Monaco because he's going to get in the way of somebody and it's going to affect him and they're going to punch him right in his face. And I'm kind of here for it. I think it would be good for the sport to see him, get knocked out and not be able to race because of concussion protocol or something. Like, it would actually be positive for the grid that he would be missing. And they'd have to call Pietro Fittipaldi and make him fly or however many hours to jump in a freaking Formula One car, no practice. But hey, I'd rather take Pietro Fittipaldi in that, Putin Haas than the guy that is driving that car outside of Mick Schumacher.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, for this Mazepin guy, I mean, it's going to really hurt for him because I think his name ought to be changed to Nikita Massive Pain. This is a continuing story. He's just slow and in the way every week. I mean, we talk about people who are in the way. I mean, we saw, not to switch gears, but in NASCAR, a lot of times it seemed like Ryan Newman's always in the way, but at least he's good and he knows how to hold his own. But this guy is just in the way and affecting people's race negatively when he shouldn't be. And we saw in qualifying, he affected Lando Norris, which may have affected Lando Norris's race because who knows, maybe he could have qualified better and finished better. But that certainly is an unknown there. But I mean, Mazepin just continues to be in the way every week. And I mean, maybe he actually is a decent driver, but we wouldn't even know because the Haas car is just really bad overall. So you have two compounding errors, I guess. One, the driver, and then two, the car. So that makes for just a disaster, I guess. And I mean, you can make a driver look better than what he actually is with a good car, but at the same time, the driver is also bad. So just two wrongs, and that won't make a right. So that's what it is for him. And maybe he gets released in the middle of the season. I don't think we'd see a fight in Formula One. That hasn't happened in a long time, but it would certainly generate a lot of interest in Formula One. And, I can't wait to see how they document that if that ever happened in the Netflix series Drive to Survive. So that would be very interesting to see. I mean, maybe we see Lewis go out and just beat up Mazepin or something after the race because he got in the way and caused him to lose to Max. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe I'm predicting the future right here. We'll see. But that could definitely be entertaining. But maybe they fire him in the middle of the season, or they cut him after the year and find somebody else because, I mean, clearly it's not working right now. But he gives us laughs at least, and for the moment. But this is just an interesting story that.
Yeah, he got when we did the post race show on the Grid Talk, and it's on YouTube. It's on anywhere where you can hear podcasts. Basically, one of the guys gave him driver of the day because he literally makes himself a part of the conversation, and everyone laughed, including me, because it's true. Not that it's a good thing that he was driver of the day, but I mean, to be as awful as he is, to be literally the worst Formula One driver since UGE day. People make Carthaginian references because Vettel called him a cucumber. I mean, there are. I mean, he's in the worst drivers I've ever seen. I mean, he's Quinn Huff level terrible. But we'll see. Milk and donuts. It kind of reminds me of that. They need to start and park him or something before once he gets lapped. Uh, Once he's about to get lapped the second time, they should just make him park his car. I mean, just get off the racetrack because he doesn't even know how to use mirrors. He's just a jackass. I mean, that's literally what it is. Uh, Going from jackasses in Europe to inbreds in South Carolina, we have the Goodyear 400 at Darlington, the throwback weekend. And that Truex kid from Mayetta, New Jersey, I think he's still leading the race. I'm sure it's one of his home races too at this point because he's won there a few times. Won both stages, led 248 of the race's 293 laps. Uh, you know, Woke NASCAR Twitter, meaning the inbred LCD, hated the race. So it wasn't exciting. It was boring. I personally, if Fox knew how to show a race, I think there was plenty of racing behind Martin Truex Jr. Obviously, uh, there are a lot of cars that were running well. They basically no sell Chase Briscoe because Clint Boyer can't deal with the fact that he got replaced out of the 14 car. And Chase Briscoe had his best run of the year and didn't even bother to say he was there. Didn't say he got a lucky dog the one time. He was leading the race because they were short on tires. Didn't mention it. I mean, at some point we have to go and address that once he starts running well, which I think they're starting to turn the corner, even with the fact that Klossmeyer blows. And that whole entire organization is a disaster area this year. Eric Almirola got run over by O. Richard, I think, eight laps into the race or some bullshit like the 6 laps into the race. Cold Custard uh, backed into a rookie of the year when he had no business winning rookie of the year. And now he got wrecked by Alf Fast Pasta on a restart. And there were like 20, there were the three of them, I think, are 26th or 28th in points, uh, which is insanely bad. They're not, this series right now is not a very deep series in regards to teams that are really, really good. Uh, they're talking about 16 winners. I think there will be about 12 or 13, but there aren't 16 cars worthy of making the playoffs, really. And they're going to have 16 cars for whatever reason because NASCAR's infinite wisdom. But Truex, 3 wins this year, all on 750 tracks, all on tracks that are going to be in the playoffs. Uh, after a year where he only won one race and new crew chief and the whole thing, he's back to what he was doing with Cole Pern now with James Small. I think he's got to be the favorite right now for this championship over Denny Hamlin or Clyde or whoever you want to put in there. He's got 3 wins and he's been dominant in every single one of those races.
Yeah, for sure. With Martin Truex Jr., credit to me. We picked him. I picked him last week. So, and by the way, Florida just legalized sports betting, I think. So pretty soon we're going to see some of these gambling companies make betting apps legal or available in Florida. So I can go and make my picks there and make some cash on that. So we'll have to see about that. But Truex, he's just dominating this race and he's just able to go out there and lead and really didn't have any issue except for a couple times with lap cars. There was a bit where he was with trying to lap Bubba Wallace, and Bubba was trying really, really hard to stay on the lead lap, and eventually he got around Bubba there. But I thought that was a good bit of action there. Bubba, at least he was able to stay in front of him for a few laps there in his car. But then at the end, it looked like maybe Larson might be able to pass Truex there, but he just didn't time his runs right. I think he had a chance with about 28 to go or 26 laps to go to pass Truex, and he got up to his bumper, I think, but just didn't have, I guess, the right timing there, because at the end ended up losing ground to Truex and ended up being a 2-second win for Martin Truex. But just a complete domination, complete total team effort for the 19 team there. So just really setting the tone for the season there for Truex. And I mean, I think I agree with you right now. He's definitely the favorite. He's the only driver in the Cup Series that has multiple wins right now. And it looks like for now, I mean, you might be able to pick him to win at Dover, and that definitely is very possible with the way that the 19 car is running this year. So, I mean, even with Denny Hamlin, I mean, he's leading the points still by 75 points, but I mean, he's not really in the conversation anymore because he's not winning. So he's got to start winning, I guess. But I mean, I think we could get to 16 winners, but it's probably not likely. I mean, I'm going to say it's 14 that we get to, because usually the summer months in NASCAR tend to get pretty wacky, and we see some surprise winners during the summer leading up to the NASCAR playoffs. So, I mean, I would think maybe 14 winners, but no more than that. But I think, for drivers like Kyle Larson, continuing to I wouldn't say he gave away this one, but Larson just, I guess, wasn't able to take advantage of the opportunity to pass Truex there and get a win at Darlington. I mean, he's actually been pretty good at Darlington too. He's led a lot of laps there the last couple of years, except for last year, obviously. But I mean, he gave away an opportunity to win, or I guess didn't take advantage of an opportunity to win here at Darlington. And then Kyle Busch faded at the beginning, had a flat tire at the beginning of the race. But then he came back and finished third and didn't get the win, but still respectable comeback effort from him there. But I mean, throughout the race, like transitioning to the next topic, like we talked about, like the drivers being able to actually pass each other, not really having dirty air impeding them, having to manage the tires. I mean, it was actually a very much a throwback race in form, not just in appearance. So this was like, if you're a fan of the old style racing where you really have to manage the throttle and really have to manage the tires throughout the course of a fuel run. I mean, this was your kind of race. And I mean, even with Truex domination, I mean, still there was 19 lead changes in this race. So it's still somewhat competitive. I mean, it wasn't the most competitive race, even if you go back to the old days when they did have passing there in the old days too. But it was still a very much a formidable race. And I mean, it wasn't that long ago when NASCAR had low downforce. I mean, it was up until the end of 2018 that we had low downforce in these cars. So we'll have to see how that goes, and if they decide to go that direction for the next gen car. So I think for this race, though, complete domination for Truex, and it looks like it's going to continue to trend in that direction.
Yeah, and it's something where right now he's 75 points back of Hamlin overall in the points, but he has 3 race wins along with the 3 stage wins, so he's got 13 more playoff points, and he leads by 9 over the next closest driver and Kyle Larson in regards to that. So this has got, feelings and signs of 2017 when he would just accumulate stage wins, stage points, and he was able to ride it into Homestead at that point, that when we still had a decent arrangement of a schedule in a sense, and they had Homestead as a finale, and he was able to go and win that race and win his championship. I think this is lining up similar to that. And it would be, I mean, he has 30 Cup wins. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's locked himself into the Hall of Fame now with his performance since 2016, really. And the Cup Championship, he's won the 600, he's won at Darlington, the Southern 500. He's missing Indy. Well, now Indy doesn't exist anymore because now it's a road course. Bristol night race. I don't think he's won Bristol, but he's been good at Daytona over the years, but he's never been able to win the 500. He came close, of course. The first Daytona 500 Hamlin won I was wishing that Truex would have won that one, but yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with him, and I think the points in general will kind of change around as we get through the rest of the season. I think some of the drivers, as we get to, we have the road courses coming up. We have Coda after Dover this weekend. Then you have Sonoma after Charlotte. And then you'll have a new track in Nashville, a doubleheader at Pocono. Well, Sonoma, and then they'll have 2 weeks to Nashville. So it'll be an off week there. That'll be interesting. So, and they'll have a day race there in Nashville. Then you'll have 2 races at Pocono, Road America, and then you have Atlanta afternoon race in July. Well, that'll be something. And then you'll have Loudon, and then the Olympic break in between Loudon and Watkins Glen. And then there'll be 2 consecutive road course races, and then Michigan, and then the final race at Daytona. So it's a varied, wide variety of races and different types of tracks. A lot of opportunities there for drivers that are outside of the top 16 in points to lock themselves or try to give themselves an opportunity to lock themselves in, possibly go and really flip this series season on its lid. In a sense, Truex, Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, of course, coming back, as Josh said, from the early issues with the tire delamination there, and William Byron, who's just knocking out top tens like a McKine, Denny Hamlin, top 5, Harvick 6th, Elliott, Blaney, Buescher, and Nonek, Chase Briscoe gets his best finish on a non-super speedway in 11th, Reddick, Logano, and you had Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, who got hung out to dry by his own crew chief there at the end of the first segment, I believe, and went from leading to going a lap down and basically was chasing that lap back the rest of the day. Eric Jones had a good car and had a tire issue. It was a shame. John Andretti throwback, and he wasn't able to finish the job. He had never finished outside the top 10 at Darlington until this race, but he had a car that could have finished in the top 10 there on Sunday. Brad Keselowski, without his crew chief, was complete hot, smoking garbage. And, you had Kurt Busch, who was on fire after getting into it with Bubba or whoever. It was somewhat of a cluster. I mean, it's been a cluster of a year for what's probably going to be Kurt Busch's last year of his Cup career. But giving up points like this at a track where he was likely to go and get a top 10 or top 15 is not a good look there. But I guess we'll see what happens at Dover this weekend. Recovery possibility for either of those guys. They both won there. And then, but Truex and Larson have been 2 of the best cars all year. Kyle Busch now all of a sudden has momentum. William Byron, Denny Hamlin, those are all guys, Harvick, Elliott. I mean, basically, you look at the first 7 drivers last week. I mean, it could look basically the same this week as we go to Dover. Justin Allgaier, we mentioned it in the initial part of the show, gets the win, another win there at Darlington, or his first win at Darlington, but a win at a challenging racetrack for him. Gives himself some extra points there. He's now got tied with Austin Cindric for the most wins for regulars. He's only 5 points back in regards to the playoff point situation, which will reset him from where he is now in 7th place to 2nd once the season ends. I think he'll be able to keep on winning. Big points gap there. I mean, there really isn't, the way I was talking about, there aren't 16 drivers that should make the playoffs. There aren't 12 drivers that should make this playoff either. But there are drivers in there that have done good work. You'll have Jeremy Clements in 5th is a perfect example. South Carolina kid, been around a while, goes and gets a top 5 at Darlington. You have Allgaier, Berry, Bruckshot, Jones, Hemrick, who led early in the first 38 laps of the race, I think, and then kind of just fell back. And then you have Annette, Moffitt, Ryan Sieg, Alex Labay, and Harrison Burton your top 10. Yeah, I mean, it was. I think the dominant Gagson, of course, had one of the best cars. He's going to end up finishing fourth. So I said Hemrick was fourth, so we move everything back. Clements actually finished sixth, but it was still a great run for him. Cindric, Gagson, and Hemrick were the three best cars for the majority of the day. But when it counted, Justin Allgaier was able to close and beat Josh Berry there. So Junior Motorsports 1-2-4 at the end of the day in Xfinity. And yeah.
Just I mean, I'd say like I mean, there's a throwback race for Junior Motorsports with their cars. I mean, honoring Dale Earnhardt, honoring Dale Earnhardt Jr. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's Justin Allgaier taking the win, and I mean, for him, I mean, it's a milestone win at Darlington as always. But I mean, Noah Gragson getting the dash for cash there, and obviously we talked about it earlier, like got the penalty and was disqualified, but they appealed and they've given him back the position, and he gets to keep his award, keep the money. So at least they recovered from that. But I mean, the younger guys or the underdogs of the series, like Clements finishing in sixth, and then I mean, I was hoping Brandon Brown would have a good run, but he finished on the lead lap still, but ended up being in 24th. So in the UPS throwback to Dale Jarrett there, but so not a great run. But I mean, also, I mean, I have to talk about a guy like Alex Labbe finishing in 10th as well. So some of these younger, or not younger, but like underdog drivers getting good runs, and Ryan Sieg in the 39 car finishing in ninth, and Brett Moffitt in eighth. So a lot of guys had good runs there for the Xfinity Series in Darlington on Saturday.
Yeah, and Brett Moffitt's running for points now, so he needs to get himself into the top 30 and win. Right now, Brett Moffitt is in 36th. He is, 24 points behind 30th. There are cars that are ahead of him that have not, or drivers that have not run every race this year. In regards to drivers who have run, there's only one, two, three drivers that have run every race that are ahead of him right now. There are guys that have run one less race, like Jade Buford, and looks like David Starr. But other than that, Josh Berry, of course, he's going to run the majority of the races before what's his name, Sam Mayer, turns 18, and then he's going to hand the ride off to him, which is a shame, honestly, because Josh Berry's run great this year in that 8 car and has proven once again that, he was a national champion in late models last year, so it's not like it's some sort of shock. But Junebug has wanted to put him in a car for years, and they finally got the money together to put him in like 14 races, and he's proven his worth, and we'd hope that he'd be able to get more than that. But kind of same thing as some of these other guys that have been struggling to stay on the circuit, like the Jeb Burtons of the world, to finally get a ride. But we'll see what happens with that. In the truck series, I mean, we talked about it in the open about Sheldon Creed. I mean, it was a Kyle Busch Motorsports benefit, and then they wrecked. The big wreck started in the front where John Hunter and I think Corey Heim got together, and then it set off some chain reaction cluster that wrecked most of the field. I mean, John Hunter still got a top 5, which is insane. But, Sheldon Creed was the one that benefited the most in that deal. The truck series very early in the year, too. I don't know how many races you have to go over here. I'll give you the results. They had, Creed wins over Rhodes. Of course, Rhodes has been having a career year this year. John Hunter had a top 10, sorry, so he did not a top 5, top 10. Rhodes led so it was John Hunter and Rhodes led most of the race, nearly 100 laps. They had 12 cautions for 66 laps, so that's basically nearly half of the race. I mean, it was a cluster of a race. They actually parked Norm Benning for being too slow. That's interesting. Uh, yeah, there's a lot of whatever there, to say the least. I mean, Carson Hocevar getting a third after they move Phil Gould over to his truck. That's their truck that they're going to try to make the playoffs with at Nice, and that's a good start to that partnership there. Kraft and Enfinger, so 3 GM or Dorsport trucks in the top 5, and 4 in the top 6 with Sauter. As the what is it? Ty Majeski's going to run 2 races for them here soon. Timmy Hill running a Kenny Irwin Jr. throwback finishes 7th, and then a couple of furniture movers there at the back end of the top 10. You can kind of go down all the way. You got a bunch of bootlickers there, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, in terms of the points, it's really John Hunter, Ben Rhodes, and everybody else at this point. There's Creed getting that win, though, puts himself in the conversation as that definite third driver that's going to be in this Final Four more than likely. Outside of that, I really don't know who would be that fourth person. I guess we have time to determine that. As it stands right now, what is it? Carson Hocevar is in the 10th place spot in points because Enfinger hasn't run every race. Austin Wayne Self is 17 points back. Chandler Smith is 19 points back, and that's basically it because Rafael Lessard lost his ride. So right now, as it stands, there's really 13 trucks for 10 spots. And even then, it's really 12 for 10 because Grant Enfinger's not eligible. And then anybody else that would be there that's run every race would need a win and a miracle, really. Like the likes of Chase Purdy, who's been absolute garbage this whole entire year. He's running in a GMS truck and he's freaking 23rd in points. I mean, you have Peters, which has been a disappointment. The 19 truck with Derek Kraus has been a disappointment this year. The DGR, Crosley, whatever team is taking a real step backwards in general. The exception, of course, is Todd Gillen, but that's because of experience, really, more than anything, I think. They don't have the pace, really, to win on a weekly basis. Truex, that's a Nice truck. Ankram's a GMS truck and it's been a nightmare. I mean, Miss Hummer 2.0, whatever. Chandler Smith definitely needs to pick the pace up, and that could be the battle itself. I think Chandler Smith versus Carson Hocevar for that final playoff spot, because I figure basically everybody else ahead of that is going to make it in. And John Hunter you're just going to have to get through the 4 truck. And once they get some things ironed out with that team, I figure it's going to be John Hunter and nobody's going to be able to stop him. But I don't know what you're thinking about that, Josh.
Yeah, with the truck series, I mean, again, John Hunter Nemechek's still dominating the series, even though he didn't win this week. And, now that Sheldon Creed has won a race, I mean, at least he's able to have something on the table now, and he's at least able to make a case for himself to win the championship. But they just have not had the pace either. And I think another guy that we have to talk about who had a lot of pace last year and led a bunch of laps, maybe shouldn't have won or didn't win as much as they should have, is Austin Hill, who had a lot of success last year in the 16 truck. But it seems like this season, I mean, they haven't been terrible really, but at the same time, they've been very quiet to start the year, and they just seem like they're not in the same form that they were a year ago. I mean, even though they have 3 top 5s and 5 top 10s, they're 4th in points. It just seems like they're not really running as well as what they were a year ago, and I feel like they could be a little bit better than what they are now. But of course, it just seems like it's just all John Hunter Nemechek at this point. But he probably should have won that race too if he didn't get crashed on the restart there that tipped off the big one at Darlington. And I have to give a lot of credit though to Sheldon Creed, because that takes a lot of skill to be able to miss the wreck and be able to see through it and time the amount of steering movements that you need to make and touching the brake and all that stuff to be able to miss the wreck. So he was able to do that, and then he was able to win the race. So at least for him, he gets to make his argument on the table on what he needs to do to be competitive this year in the Truck Series and be able to at least have a case to be made for him to repeat in the championship later this year.
And as we found out in social media, he's worth more than $15,000 after getting into it with Marcus Lemonis, who's been sponsoring a lot of the trucks here this year to try to make it look better for his own series, which is basically the only reason the Truck Series exists anymore is because of Marcus Lemonis, because it should have been dead a long time ago. Code will be their next race, so we'll talk about the trucks in more detail next week on episode Richie Evans of the Rip Strip podcast. We'll transition over into the roundup portion and MotoGP, which saw the Ducatis of Jack Miller and Pecco Bagnaia going and having a great run there at the Spanish Grand Prix at Jerez, getting a 1-2 finish for the Ducati team after the qualifying, which saw Miller and Bagnaia start third and fourth behind Quartararo and Franco Morbidelli. Quartararo goes from pole and finished, I find it 13th, so nightmare race for him. Morbidelli finishes third. Taka Nakagami on the LCR Honda finished fourth, and Joan Mir, the defending world champion, finished fifth. Alex Espargaro, Maverick Vinales, Johan Zarco, Marc Marquez, and Pol Espargaro, so the two Repsol Honda teammates, finished 9th and 10th. And so 3 Ducatis in the top 8 there, and the semi-factory or the factory connection on the team with Taka Nakagami gets a 4th. I mean, while his teammate, Alex Marquez, doesn't even get a lap. So that's interesting. In regards to Moto 2, which is where the Americans are there, we can go and give you some results on that. Fabio Di Gianantonio got the win over Marco Bezzecchi and Sam Lowes. Remy Gardner finished 4th. Raul Fernandez 5th. Javi Vieja 6th. Joe Roberts finished 8th. Aaron Canet there 9th. Cameron Bobier had a DNF there on Sunday in the Moto 2 race. They'll be going to Le Mans this weekend for their races, so hopefully better result for Cameron Bobier, and Joe Roberts can continue to progress up. As it stands, Roberts is 6th in points, well behind, of course, the battle between Gardner, Lowes, and Raul Fernandez, who are separated by 6 points. Bezzecchi is 4th, and Di Gianantonio, with his win, puts himself back into the points battle in 5th, 17 points back of the lead. Cameron Bobier is 14th in points with 2 points finishes so far. I'll give you the points in regards to MotoGP. Bagnaia and Quartararo are separated by 2 points. Quartararo has 2 wins, a 5th, and then that 13th place finish at Jerez. Vinales, Mir, Zarco are separated by 2 points. between the three of them. Then another batch of riders, which includes Miller, who won, and then Alicia Spargo, Franco Morbidelli, 6 points, and Rins Binder finish out the top 10. Marc Marquez just came back a few weeks ago. He's 15th in points. And Valentino Rossi has one points finish so far this year. So a very sad end to the legendary career of Valentino Rossi, to say the least. Going to the supercars at the Bend, and it was an interesting weekend for sure in regards to the balance across all three races and the ability to see different drivers win. Cameron Waters is the winner. He won one of the three races there. We can go to they go to race 1, which saw Andre Heimgartner get his first win over Chaz Mostert and Anton De Pasquale. So Ford's finished 2 of the top 3 on the podium, and Cam Waters 4th. Of course, Chaz Mostert drives for Walkinshaw, Andretti United, and insert any number of other names you want to hear. In the Holden Winge Cup 6th. Then in race 2 was Anton De Pasquale getting his first win for DJR and Will Davison. So a DJR 1-2, more like what it has been in recent years. Shane Van Gisbergen finished 3rd. And then James Courtney 4th for the Tickford team. And in race 3, as I mentioned, Waters over Van Gisbergen, Will Davison, Winge Cup 4th, and Chaz Mostert 5th. The standings have Van Gisbergen up by nearly 200 points over Winge Cup, who is running his last year. For those who are listening and don't really know what Winge Cup or Winge Cup is like, he's basically like Jimmy Johnson. He came in after Craig Lowndes, who's basically like Jeff Gordon, who followed what amounts to the Dale Earnhardt or Richard Petty of Australian motorsport, and Peter Brock. So that's that whole kind of fall off effect there. Van Gisbergen has won six races. He won the first 6 races to start the year, and then since then's kind of slowed down a little bit, got a 2nd and a 3rd. Winge Cup has won 1 race this year, but otherwise has been in the top 10 in every race sans the last race of the race at the Bend there. It looks like, because it's where it stops. Will Davison in 3rd, Mostert in 4th, Cam Waters in 5th is a very nice battle between them. So the Red Bull team's basically going to determine this championship amongst themselves. And then the battle after that is kind of close for between 3rd through 5th. And then Winterbottom, Anton De Pasquale and Andre Heimgartner have a nice little battle between themselves. Percat and Brody Kostecki and the top 10. Formula E at Monaco was a very interesting race for sure, which saw defending champion Antonio Felix da Costa getting the win. They'll take a long break here between this race and then in Mexico. Da Costa getting a last lap pass on Robin Freins to win. Then Mitch Evans finished 3rd for Jaguar. So Techeetah, the DS Techeetah team over Virgin over Jaguar. And then Da Costa's teammate John-Eric Verne, 2-time champion, finished 4th. Max Gunther for Andretti finished 5th. Alex Lynn for Mahindra finished 9th. You have other people there. Alexander Sims for Mahindra didn't even complete a lap. In regards to the standings, Robin Freins has a 5-point lead over Nick DeVries and 8-point lead over Mitch Evans. Da Costa with the win puts himself back into the battle. He's 10 points back to try and repeat as what would be a world champion now in Formula E. Sam Bird, Stoffel Van Dorn, Jean-Eric Verne are within 20 points of the lead with what amounts to 8 rounds to go in the championship. Once things get back going, they'll be running Mexico, then New York City, London, and Berlin to end the Formula E season. Formula 3 at Catalunya, the opener of their season, and they has 3 American drivers, so that's cool because Dalton Sargent was able to get a ride late, and late call up there, and Enzo Fittipaldi also. So that's something. Go to the results of the races on this weekend, which saw Smoliar for ART over Clement Novalak and Caio Collet. Logan Sargent ended up finishing 4th in the first race there. The other American drivers, Jack Crawford for High Tech, Red Bull High Tech was 13th, and Juan Manuel Correa was 15th for ART. Race 2, Ollie Caldwell over Victor Martins and Frederick Vesti. Novalak and Collet rounded out the top 5. Jack Crawford finished 9th. Juan Manuel Correa finished 10th. Kayleen, what is that? Is that another one? Yeah, he is an American. Jeez. Okay, so there's 4. Well, I just found that out myself. Look at that. That's cute. So there's 4 Americans in Formula 3 now. I've been saying there's 2. There was 3 last minute. Now there's 4. So Kayleen Frederick finished 17th there. They don't have flags for a bunch of these people. And Sargent and Smoliar wrecked early in the race, basically the first 2 laps or in the second lap of the race or something like that. So that's a shame. Frederick was finished 22nd. And then in race 3, Dennis Hauger, Jack Doohan, and Matteo Nannini took the podium places with Ollie Caldwell and Victor Martins in the top 5. Novalak, Vesti, Collet. Logan Sargent gets a 9th place there. Juan Manuel Correa, 14th. Jack Crawford, 18th. And Frederick looks like he was a lap down there. So, and dead last. So, super. He's taking his place as being Egghead for this series, I guess. And then IMSA will be coming back this weekend at Mid-Ohio. They're going to be running. Let me just get an idea what's going on. I don't know. Did you see anything for the IMSA race, Josh? As I know the prototypes, it'll be prototypes. I think it'll be the full allotment of classes, but we'll just confirm that for you. The Acura Sports Car Challenge presented by the TLX Type S. So,
yeah, go Acura.
Yeah, go Acura. The what do you call the Meyer Shank team is looking forward to this race. They're talking about how they've been able to get time to prepare and solidify some things between Sebring and now. That'll, first sprint race will make it a little more difficult, but it's still something to see. They're looking good in regards to their battle with the Cadillacs. So the Konica Minolta team, which won the 24 hours of Daytona, then the 60 team, which has been on the upswing now and coming back to prototypes. You have I'm trying to look for the entry list. It'd be nice if we could get an entry list.
Yeah, Yeah, I can't find that either.
Yeah, which is a shame. That doesn't help us.
I think I found it.
All right, so we're yeah, so they'll be running. So there's actually a prototype challenge, and then there'll also be cars in the regular race itself. Okay, here we go. So they'll be running DPI, LMP3, and GTD this weekend. So there are cars that are going to be running in both the prototype challenge race and also in the Acura Sports Car Challenge. So there will be 7 prototypes. The Cadillac Chip Ganassi team of Renger van der Zandt and Kevin Magnussen, Mustang sampling JDC Miller car, Vautier and Duval, the Konica Minolta team of Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, then Nazar and Durrani in the Whelen Engineering Caddy, the Mazda of Jarvis and Ticknell, and then the Meyer Shank team of Olivier Pla and Dayton Cameron. 47 Motorsport for LMP3 with Austin McCusker and to be determined. That's a good driver. João Barbosa and Lance Wilsley for Sean Creech Motorsports. They ran well at Daytona. Andretti Autosport debuting with Jared Andretti and Oliver Askew, who is a silver, which is crazy. Rasmus Linden, Dan Goldberg in the Performance Tech 38. John Bennett and Colin Brown in the Core Autosport 54. Riley Motorsports, Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga. And then Jim Cox, Dylan Murray in the Wins, Riley Motorsports number 91. Then in the GTD class, we'll have a pretty good field there. You'll have the Lamborghini of Brian Sellers and Madison Snow from Paul Miller, Jersey team. And you have Zachary Robichon, Lawrence Vantor, and the Pfaff Porsche, the Vassar Sullivan duo of Veach and Montecalvo in the 12, and then Hawksworth and Tellitz in the 14. Ryan Hardwick back after some injuries suffered at Sebring, along with Patrick Long in the Wright Motorsports Porsche. The Aston Martin of Ross Gunn, Roman DeAngelis. It looks like a fill-in driver because I'm forgetting. I think Darren Turner usually runs, or I'm forgetting who else drives that car. I don't think that's the regular driver lineup, but I think there's a European Le Mans race this weekend too, which probably helps.
Yeah, of course.
Daniel Morad and Michael DeCasada for Allegra Motorsports. What were you going to say there?
Sorry, I said. I was going to go back to DPI. We are missing the 48 Ally car. Of course, Jimmy Johnson and Simon Pagenaud both going to be in Indianapolis this weekend, racing there. But so far in the season they've been a regular. Obviously it's only been 2 races, but they've been a regular so far, and now they're not going to be in this one. But they'll probably be back later in the year, though.
They'll run the. They're going to be running the Endurance Cup, so they'll be back for Watkins Glen. Road Atlanta for the Petit Le Mans. So that'll be a good. That's a car that has definitely been strong. Their Action Express team, so it's a good car. So it's a shame they're not there, but it'll be something to see once they come back. And they'll have a strong driver lineup for sure. Richard Heidenstand and Jeff Westphal in the number 39 Audi, the Magnus of Archangel, Acura, Potter, and Lally. Mark Miller driving for Gradient Racing with Till something or another. That's what his name really looks like. Mario Farnbacher and Jeff Kingsley. Watched them win. Mario Farnbacher and Jeff Kingsley in the Compass Racing Acura. Catherine Legg and Rob Ferriel in the Hardpoint EBM Porsche. So actually Catherine Legg not running with Christina Nielsen. That's weird. And then Bill Oberlin and Robbie Foley in the Turner Motorsports 96. The ageless wonder that is Bill Oberlin. There's going through over that. That's the Pilot Challenge. That's kind of cool to look at these Hyundais with they have Elantra. Look at that. 2 Elantra TCRs now, and then there's one Veloster or a few Velosters. They ran one for Robbie Wickens from Brian Hurd Autosport. So a week last week for him to get back in a race car for the first time. So that was pretty cool to see. Yeah. So we can go before we get into the picks and the discussion of the races this weekend, which will be NASCAR and IndyCar, which outside of what we already discussed with MotoGP and IMSA. The NFL schedule has come out this today in regards to teams. So I guess we'll start with you, Josh, because I've done a lot of talking here during the roundup. Jacksonville Jaguars, what does it look like for Trevor Lawrence and company and Tim Tebow since he's the Prince of Peace? He's supposedly going to come back and play tight end, probably because Urban Meyer likes tight ends. They'll have a Week 7 bye. I think the Miami, that's after the London game.
Yeah.
And so they'll have the Week 7 bye, and then they'll have to go and travel to Seattle after that. And then, so interesting little schedule. We'll have a discussion on Week 11 since you'll be hosting the San Francisco 49ers at that point. So we'll definitely have some stuff to talk about there. But what are your thoughts on the schedule and how it lays out, and the fact that you'll be able to play, you'll have your last game of the season will be a home game against in division foe too.
Yeah, right. With the season here, I mean, we have the Jaguars starting the year at the Texans. I mean, I personally think that should be an easy win. Texans seem to be in shambles. We don't even know if Deshaun Watson will even be playing. Of course, with his legal situation there, no idea how that will work out. Then week 2, we're gonna have our season home opener with the Broncos. That might be interesting. Got a friend from school whose brother-in-law is Justin Simmons, who's the starting strong safety for the Broncos. So that might be something we got to link up for. We'll see. And then Thursday night at the Bengals, that might be an interesting matchup there. Battle of two young quarterbacks with Trevor Lawrence and then Joe Burrow there.
You have Joe Burrows and dead.
Yeah, that's true. Then, of course, the annual matchup with the Titans, and then the Battle of Florida, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Miami Dolphins playing in London this year. They didn't know if they were going to have a London game, but I guess they tentatively will if things go right with the virus and all that stuff. So that's tentative, and they'll be playing not in Wembley Stadium, but they'll be playing in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium there. So it's going to be a little bit of a different look than what maybe Jaguars fans like myself been accustomed to seeing with
playing at Tottenham for sure. I think that's Shad's team, right?
Yeah,
Tottenham.
No, his team is Fulham.
Yes, that's interesting why they're playing there, but whatever.
Well, they've been playing, I guess,
at Wembley.
Well, at Wembley though, but the NFL has been playing games in Tottenham besides 2020, obviously, in last couple of years. I think they're trying to work out a deal where when time at the London game, so that gives them time to prepare for that in Jacksonville. And then, yeah, of course, going to be playing the 49ers in week 11, so that's definitely going to be a rivalry matchup. Playing the Falcons in week 12. And then, of course, week 13 at the Rams, that's going to be the Jalen Ramsey revenge game for Ramsey if he's able to pick off some Trevor Lawrence passes, or Trevor Lawrence goes out and makes Jalen Ramsey his daddy or something. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. And then, of course, at the end of the year, we're going to play the Patriots. So maybe the Mac Jones or Cam Newton Bowl versus Trevor Lawrence. We'll see. And then, of course, the end of the year, versing the Colts. As usual, the NFL playing the divisional games for last week of the season in the week 18. So now we have 17 games this season, and we're going to end it versus the Colts. So it should be an interesting season. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I hit a button there, so there's probably going to be a random gap there while we go through your discussion of the Jacksonville Jaguars season. So apologies to everybody if you wonder why there's like a random gap, because I went and I was scrolling and I hit a button. So apologies to everybody, including Josh there on that. Um, in regards to the 49ers, we're going to start with 2 road games with Detroit and Jared Goff and the kneecap biters with Super Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, and then the Philadelphia Eagles the week after that, which they're kind of a dart without feathers. So kind of feel like that could be an early 2-0 start coming home to a Sunday night football game against Aaron, if he's still there, probably will be, uh, versus Seattle very early in the year, which is kind of brutal. Then Arizona at Arizona, and then a bye week early, which when you consider this is a 17-week season, I think getting a week 6 bye is pretty shitty. Then they have to come back off of that into a Sunday night football game, though it is at home against the Indianapolis Colts. So we have 3 Sunday night football games and 1 Monday night football game, or 3 Sunday night football games, and then a Thursday night football game at Tennessee. They'll play versus Houston week 17, which is probably going to be a win, and then at Los Angeles, which could be for the division title. At least it is in Seattle. We'll play Seattle, finish Seattle earlier in the year. I mean, right there, the early part of the season, they could be I think no worse than 3-2, playing 2 divisional opponents. I think as long as they're at least 3-2, going to the bye, it'll be fine. I think they could be better than that. I would hope they're better than that, but can't get greedy. The Indianapolis Colts of Carson Wentz. We'll see what happens there at Chicago. 1:00 game, so that'll be a East Coast, so that'll be kind of brutal. But whether Justin Fields will be playing that game or not, will be on Halloween no less, so that'll be something. And then Arizona, Los Angeles back-to-back weeks, and they'll have that LA game at home at Levi's on Monday Night Football. Then a short week to go to Jacksonville, no less. So kind of an early advantage goes to Josh's guys there. And then they'll go to Minnesota, or it'll be home against Minnesota before they go to Seattle for Sunday Night Football, at Cincinnati, and then at home versus Atlanta. Kind of seems like this like stop start kind of schedule. It's kind of brutal, but prime time game on a Thursday night, 4 days between a home game at Atlanta versus Atlanta, and then have to go fly to Tennessee, which is kind of bullshit, but it'll give them a long gap to prepare for Houston. So they'll get a mini bye between the Tennessee game and the Houston game after the new year. That'll be a little bit of a benefit. Yeah, I mean, the Niners got a softer schedule after finishing last in the division. Opportunity is there. Not sure if Trey Lance will play this year. If Jimmy G can stay healthy, this roster is pretty tough. They're a team that could contend and possibly get to LA, not just on Sunday, January 9th, but a month after that, for the Super Bowl. But the health, of course, is the big key in regards to that. We'll preview the Indy Grand Prix at Indianapolis. First of 2 races they'll have there this year. They'll have, I guess, the Harvest Grand Prix later in the year. I mean, it's a Penske benefit, whether you're a Penske driver, because Pagenaud won there for Schmidt prior to going to Penske, whether you're Will Power. Penske has dominated this race. Dixon, of course, won the first race there last year, and then I think Will Power won in the fall. So I mean, I guess, Josh, for you, who's your pick for winner at Indy GP, and who do you look at as somebody that could be a surprise? Uh, Somebody who really hasn't done anything to start the year points wise right now, outside of top 10, I guess I would think would be considered a dark horse pick as it stands right now in the IndyCar series.
Yes, I think for me, I'm going to go with Joseph Newgarden. He's definitely close at St. Petersburg, the last road race that we went to for the IndyCar series, and he finished well to start the year at Barber. So I'm going to go with Joseph Newgarden winning the Indy Grand Prix to start the month of May for Team Penske. I mean, wearing a Team Penske shirt right now, so not trying to be biased, but I may as well bring that one up. I think for a wild card pick, I'm gonna go a little unconventional here and go with Jimmy Johnson here. He's This is probably the track he has the most experience at in an IndyCar. I mean, he tested there uh, last year in the Chip Ganassi car, and I guess he's a little bit more familiar with Indianapolis compared to um, Barber in St. Petersburg. So I think third race of the season, he's had a couple of races under his belt. Let's see what can he do this time around. Track these at least a little bit more familiar with than the previous two. And maybe not be the last car in the lead lap, or not be multiple laps down. Maybe they can finish one lap down in this race. So look to see what kind of progress he can make in this race as a IndyCar driver now.
Well, one thing's for sure, he's going to be the one who has the most commercials shown, and he'll have a cool car that they keep on letting people vote for on the Carvana site. So his livery changes, I think, for every race that he runs, which in turn means new helmets and the whole bit. Dale Jr., we were talking about that I Am Athlete. He wanted Dale Jr., Jimmy Johnson to be on there, so hopefully he'll be on there soon enough too. Uh, yeah, that'll be something. I think that'll be a track where you'll have a little better opportunity to be a little more competitive. You'll add a couple guys. You'll have Jimble Kimball, and then Elio Castro Dash Neves will be running his first race of the season. I think I don't remember if he has run at St. Pete, or I don't. I thought he ran one of them, but maybe I'm just remembering wrong. But uh, they'll be running this race. So, I mean, basically going through the list, there's been 9 races there, and only twice as a non-Penske driver won. Of course, Pagano is a Penske driver now, but when he won there in 14, he wasn't. Otherwise, Penske driver, and Dixon in July the 4th last year, the same day as the Xfinity race, where Chase Briscoe won. Uh, those are the only two exceptions. Otherwise, you have Will Powers, a 4-time winner there. Newgarden won there last fall in the first of 2 races at the Harvest Grand Prix, and then Pagano's won there twice as a Penske driver. For me, in regards to who I look for in the Indy Grand Prix, uh, as a winner, I'm curious to. I'm kind of. I figure. I mean, I want to go and I want to go a little different, but I think I'm just gonna have to go willpower. Kind of makes me nauseous, but I'm gonna go willpower. He's had a good start to the year. He's third in points. I mean, albeit 37 points back, but he has won podium. He's been up there. Uh, you went with Newgarden, so we both left Scott Dixon out there. So, well, Scott Dixon will probably go out there and win the race, but it's fine. In regards to a dark horse, I said anybody outside of the top 10, so I just walked into this one. I've given myself some really good options, actually. And I will go with I mean, I would go with the soft ball here, but I'm going to go with Sebastian Bourdais driving the 14 car for AJ Foyt. It'll be good to see him get a good run He's had some struggles this year. They have led laps. They've ran better than what the results show. They've had some problems, which is part of the reason why they're so far back. Same for Alexander Rossi, who's right behind him in points. So those would be two guys I would look at, Bourdais and Rossi, trying to set up their month of May and angle themselves for the double points of the Indianapolis 500 to get themselves back into this points championship. We'll see what happens with that. Indy Grand Prix will definitely be an interesting and tough race for sure. It's a really tough endurance test there. You really get it takes a lot out of you, and then you're basically getting right onto the oval the next day or a couple days after that to start practice for the Indianapolis 500, basically. So that'll be something to see. On to NASCAR and the Dryden 400 in the Cup Series, and then in the Xfinity will be the Dryden 200. So, and there will be a bunch of cars sponsored by Dryden itself. And they have updated Xfinity list there. In regards to picks, Josh, I think one of us is going to pick one of those guys, and I think we'll pick whoever picks the one is going to pick the other. So I'll toss it to you in regards to picking a dark horse for both Saturday and Sunday at Dover.
Right. So I think for the Cup race on Sunday, the winner is going to be the one James Dennis Hamlin in the 11 car for FedEx. He hasn't won yet this year, but he did win at Dover back in August when they had the doubleheader. He won the first race there, so it's about time he's won. He's led a bunch of laps, but no wins in the win column so far this year. So I'm going to go with Denny Hamlin winning this race. I think for a wild card, he's been running pretty good recently, I think, and I'm going to go with Eric Jones in the 43 car. He's had a couple of good runs of late. I mean, Darlington ended up finishing 2 laps down. Probably could have had an opportunity to win at Talladega recently, but I think Eric Jones could be someone to watch on Sunday at Darlington or at Dover. So I would pick him, probably finish somewhere in the top 20. We'll give him that somewhere 15th and 20th, but maybe we see him at some point in the top 10 during the race. So I'll go with that for Sunday. And then I think Saturday, the Dryden 200 for Xfinity. I'm gonna go with Justin Allgaier. He's won before at Dover. Can't see why not. Why he can't win again there, and definitely make it back to back from last week and win again this week at Dover. And then I think wild card. I'm gonna go with Brandon Brown. I think last year his run at Dover was kind of the race that kind of put him, I guess, on the map for Xfinity in terms of being able to be talked about by the announcers. And I think he really impressed a lot of people with the way he was able to hold his own on some of the restarts there in the stages early on in that Xfinity race back in August. So look for him to kind of put on the same performance if it's possible for him there. So look for him to try to steal like a top 10 run at Dover on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, Allgaier definitely is a strong pick there. I think he is definitely the favorite going into this race on Saturday. He's a former winner, multiple winner there. And for me, I'm going to go. I think at some point Daniel Hemrick has to win a race. And I feel like this is the time. He'll have pit road position. He has a good car. He's got confidence. At some point, this has to change. He finally has to win a race for Ren, his daughter, for his smoking hot wife, all these things. I think at some point, Daniel Hemrick has to go and win. in regard, and I think it's going to happen this weekend. It's this kind of racetrack. This is his kind of deal to go out there and win at Dover. As a wild card pick, I'm going to go with Ryan Sieg. He got a decent run finally at Darlington. They've had a really rough start to the season, changing over to Ford. Of course, when you consider that one of the other Fords is driven by Riley Herbst, it basically means it doesn't count. So I mean, Ryan Sieg has run much better, or he's had a better year last year than he had so far this year. But we will see. Maybe this is an opportunity race for him, starting 12th, to go out there, get a good run, and get himself back into the point standings and possibly give himself a chance to make the top 12. In regards to Cup, Josh going with Denny Hamlin basically, left it out on the table. And so I'm just going to take the easy road because, especially in the game on Talking in Circles after Eric Almirola finished basically last, I haven't recovered, and I don't think I ever will recover. I'll pick Truex. It's one of his 18 home tracks, and basically it is the closest track other than Pocono to his actual where he lives, and probably is his home track, and he's really good there, and he's great on concrete and all these different things, 750 track, all of that. So I pick him. In regards to a dark horse candidate, I have to go through this. I said that on Talking in Circles, I said Cold Custard. You said Eric Jones. I think based on, because we don't have the same rules in regards to the playoffs or whatever it is. I mean, I guess we could go and do it by that, but because there's too many people in the playoffs as it is, so. And Chris Buescher theoretically is in the playoffs right now, right? Yeah, so that's not. I can't count that. Ugh. I mean, you picked Eric Jones, so that fits. You know what? I'll pick Kurt Busch. He can't keep on running this bad. Personally, I don't see how he can run this bad on what's going to be his final year of his career. He has a 16.2 average over the last 10 races there, but he knows how to get around this racetrack. He has the ability to go out there and win. He's won there before. So I think I'm going to go with Kurt Busch for better or worse there. So Josh, let us know what your exploits were on iRacing and elsewhere. Running the Gen 7 car too. Also saw a little bit of that. That seemed pretty brutal. At times seemed like there was no grip. You tell us about all of that and what you're planning on doing this weekend, since we got Indy stuff going on and 600 coming up and some of these other big races going on here in the month of May.
Yeah, I mean, I did test the new iRacing Gen 7 car, next gen car that was released last week on Wednesday, and did try a little bit of out at Charlotte, and it was basically flat out for the most part. I mean, you're not really, I mean, you're just kind of putting it on the bottom right on the paint on both ends of the racetrack in turn 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then, I mean, there is fall off. I'll give him that. Like, there is tire fall off, but you're not really lifting, I guess, there. But I mean, I was only Charlotte, the one that I tried it at, and then I tried the road course Charlotte Roval with the car, and that one was a little bit more of a challenge. Definitely had a bit of an issue, like getting back onto the racetrack. The turn right before that just ended up having a couple of spin outs right there. And I've heard online that there's a lot of issues, I guess, like car randomly spinning in a corner or something like that. So maybe it's just a physics issue or something like that. And they've they'll fix it in the next release or two or something like that. We'll see. But I am curious, like, because on the oval side, I mean, that's what we're really focused on, how it's going to improve or change the oval racing product. And obviously, this car is going to be generating a lot of downforce on the underneath side. They're going to really be using a lot of ground effect. They're going to have a rear diffuser on the car for the first time in the Cup Series, and obviously changing the rear suspension to independent rear suspension there. So in iRacing, obviously it was flat out and all that, and I wonder how that's going to look like in real life, if it's going to be the same thing, but they're able to at least close up to one another and pass. So that's going to be, I guess, a storyline to follow in the real life side of Cup Series. But of course, on iRacing, I mean, it'll probably be entertaining as they go to different racetracks for the next gen car. So that's kind of, I guess, a preview, maybe what we'll see in next year in Cup for the new car. But then also did 1987 Cup at Michigan. Always an interesting race. You really have to manage the tires throughout the course of a run. I mean, by the end of the race, like, really have to baby the car, because a lot of times the tires will be basically melted, and you basically like off the throttle the entire corner, at least for me. But then some other guys, they really know how to manage the tire, and they are able to keep the same pace and manage the fall off really well, and stay out there and not need to come in for tires and fuel. And I mean, the past one that I streamed that you saw, I mean, I was in top 5 for majority of the race, I felt like, or close to the top 5, 6th or 7th or whatever. But at the end, I mean, I decided to pit when the leaders pit and try to have a 20 lap run or so to the end, and have a lot fresher tires than the leaders that and stayed out after us. But those guys ended up pitting on the first caution, was like lap 14 or whatever, 60 lap race, and they're able to manage the fuel. And I thought they'd be on the outside of the fuel window and they'd have to come in again, but they managed to save enough fuel and manage the tires, and they were able to stay out. And I ended up falling a lap down because they stayed out, because they're on their strategy, and ended up finishing like 10th or 11th. But I mean, didn't work out, but definitely learned a lot as usual, and able to try to continue to master, I guess, the 87 car with the tire stuff and all that. And then also this week, I'm qualifying for the fixed Indy 500, the fixed setup Indy 500. They'll be running on Friday night, and then they'll have a couple runs on Saturday, and then one run on Sunday morning. So I think for me, probably will work out best is the Friday night edition, or maybe the Saturday morning running for the fixed setup Indy 500. And they're doing qualifying sessions this week, and it's definitely hard to qualify. I mean, you're going flat out, but you have to drive the car absolutely perfect, and you got to get on the white line, in between the grass, in between the white line in each corner, and then just maximize the usage of the track coming off the corner, and just try to manage the weight jacker, and try not to lose as much time as possible over the 4-lap run. I mean, there is tire wear, so as you go throughout, you have to adjust and tighten up the car so it doesn't spin out off the corner exit, which has definitely happened to me a couple of times in test runs, and then the qualifying run in the real thing, or in the official session, trying to have good pace there. And I feel good about the pace in qualifying. At least one lap speed, definitely had some of the better times of the people in the sessions that I was in. So got to be able to translate that the 4-lap run. And I've had a couple of good 4-lap runs, but trying to continue to work on better. So look out for that. Probably Friday night, maybe Saturday morning. Getting the COVID shot on Friday, so hopefully the second one. So hopefully we'll be able to manage the symptoms, I guess, and still be able to race. No reason why I can't play, I guess, sick or whatever. So we'll see about that. But just take a Tylenol if anything, and just manage that. So should be interesting. Trying to run in iRacing officiated Indy 500 for the first time in my sim racing deal.
Yeah, it'll be cool. I mean, they there was announcements, I think, for the Open Wheels 500 as well. Tanner Watkins, who runs PR, I think, for what was once Indianapolis Raceway Park. I think it's now Lucas Oil Raceway Park or whatever. He runs that race, and Spencer Neff, who's been on the show as well. He writes all the reports and everything. So great race, something that Josh tried to make last year, and this is a precursor to that, running the iRacing Indy 500 fix. So let's hope good luck and get a good run in, get qualified the whole bit, so that we can get some experience. We can go and run some other Indy 500 and some of these other big races as we go along here in 2021. With that, we'll call it a day here on episode 60 of the GSP. Josh, where can we find you on the socials? Where can we find your streams for iRacing as well?
Yeah, of course, as always, twitter.com @usailor2 or @JPHuffine. That's the Twitter name there. And then, of course, if you want to see the iRacing streaming the Indy 500 and NASCAR 1987, all that, you can see the replay of that, see the test run for the Gen 6 or Gen 7 car on iRacing. As always, twitch.tv/usailor2 on there, and then you can go watch all that stuff, see how I did, comment, interact or whatever. So go follow on there.
Yeah, make sure to follow Josh. I mean, he's got, especially on the Twitch stream, he's always on there. I was doing that whenever I get the link. I follow him on usailor too, so whenever I get the notification, I usually click on watch. Don't really comment all that much, or I try to, but of course I'm not trying to distract. So hopefully we'll have the Twitch stream of the Indy 500 here this weekend to see, since there really isn't a whole lot going on during the mornings or late evenings, depending. And then before we get into NASCAR and IndyCar on Saturday and NASCAR both Saturday and Sunday. For me, you can follow me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can follow me. There's also at philipgmatthew.com, which is one of the places where you can find the Grip Strip podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Podbean, Pandora, and iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn. Basically, wherever you can find podcasts, you can find the Grip Strip podcast. And we're on, on your website there. It's a WordPress website. You can find my written work on sportlightpro.com. I'll probably get back to writing again to preview the Monaco Grand Prix. You can also contribute as a co-host to Talking in Circles, and which is NASCAR based. Clayton Caldwell, of course, has been on the show. And then Grid Talk podcast, Formula One. They're on YouTube. They're all over. F1 at F1 Chronicle. George Howson and the crew. George Howson, of course, has been on. Also follow the guys at the Monkey Seat podcast. They've been kind enough to have me on, and we've had Tom on from the Monkey Seat. So all good people, all great things. We're all talking about our passion for motorsports here. If you have any purchases on Circle B Diecast, for whether it's merch, whether it's diecast, of course, me going and constantly going and purchasing diecast because I have a problem. You can use the code GSP28 and get free shipping. So if you like diecasts and you want whoever it may be, if you're a Hendrick person, of course, so that'll probably be easy for you because they make everything Hendrick. If you're a Chase Briscoe fan, you have to wait a little longer. But if you have those purchases, they have great merch. They do a great job, great with customer service there at Circle B Diecast. GSP28 on that. So with all of that said, We had a lot going on here tonight on episode 60, and we'll be back next week to talk about everything that went on at Indy Road Course, talk about Indy 500, talk about NASCAR going to COTA. We'll get into the races at Mid-Ohio for IMSA and MotoGP at Le Mans, and preview, of course, the COTA triple header. Formula One will be running the Monaco Grand Prix. We'll get into that as well. So for Josh, Phil, stay safe, wear a mask, social distance. We're getting closer to the end here. It doesn't take a whole heck of a lot to do the basics. But there are people that can't do that, which is why this continues, and it's taking off again in certain countries like India, unfortunately affecting family of mine. So it doesn't take much to be smart, but it obviously is a problem for many people. So try not to be those people. Take care. God bless, and good night.